Illinois, but we are the only one local. We've been around now for over 7 years, and we've done so many projects, and our latest project is one of my favorites, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But I wanted to make sure that you all knew that we do a very active website, active newsletter, active volunteer corps. And right now we are just, even though it's still COVID, we are just rolling. And I think it's because so many people want to be outdoors. So many people want to participate. And I think there's so many of us too that do want to do good out in the world. So by joining our restoration days, or even our board, or some of our other volunteer things that we have going, you can do good things. So I'm going to start the PowerPoint right now. And one thing I do want to do first is to make sure that you know that I am not an expert. I am a rogue enthusiast. My background is in natural resource management and education. I worked for Park District Highland Park, Byron Forest Preserve, Vernon Township, and then over 20 years with McHenry County Conservation District as their outreach education program coordinator. So my job was always to connect people with the natural world. So I love all the things about the natural world, but being able to translate so many things so that everyone can understand the wonderful things about it. That's what I like to do. So I'm going to share my screen right now and go. Whoops. All right. So obviously I'm not at the beginning. Here we go. There we are. So first of all, you'll see our logo. Oh, it already jumped a page. The logo, our website again is the ancientoaksfoundation.org. A couple things I want to talk about our upcoming stuff, but one thing I really do want to talk about is our partnership with the library. They've been putting story walks out in natural areas and parks here in Lake Zurich. And so you can actually read a book as you travel through these beautiful places. So, and they've been changing them and making them seasonally appropriate, and it's just wonderful. We do a Birds in Bloom coming up this Saturday, which will be at Oak Ridge Marsh at 2 o'clock till 3:30. There is a nominal fee. You can sign up through our website. And the warblers are here. So I can't promise you, but I bet we can see 20 species in that hour and a half. The other thing I want to talk about is our big volunteer effort, which is the Cushman Cove, which is a nature playscape over at Cushman Park, which is 626 North Old Rand Road. We started installation 2 weeks ago, and we hope to be done by the end of the month, but it has been all volunteer built. We do have a partnership with the Village of Lake Zurich, and they have helped on some of the big stuff, like digging in really dry super soil right now is hard. So here we are. And if I go too fast, you know, let me know in the chat or however you need to. But, and then I can look at it later. But anyway, so a lot of people, and I've run into many people who think that this is really what Lake Zurich is about, is Route 12. I don't know how they got this picture, because that's the quietest I have ever seen Route 12 or the stores. Even during COVID, there were more people driving around. So, but there's a lot more to Lake Zurich than Route 12. So let's go. And it's a lot more than all these places. And I have to admit, I probably go to more than half of those. And that is kind of one of the nice things about living in Lake Zurich is that you can go to all these things. But the other thing is that we do have all these wonderful and amazing natural areas near us. Now, the Ancient Oaks Foundation manages quite a few of them. One of them is the Oak Ridge Marsh Nature Park at 500 Lions Drive. It's a really cool little spot, and you're always surprised when you find it. But when we first started there 7 years ago, there was a wall of buckthorn, and that's all you saw. This is a before. This is an after. Look at the view. So this is what it should have been, what it was during settlement, and what we have brought it back to. This is when we first did a clearing, so you're going to see a lot of the brush piles, but also this is a big wetland back there, and then Echo Lake is over on this side. This is another view about the middle of the park. That view, this was probably about 4 years ago. So we have sunlight, we have air moving through here. We have flowers. There's trees back here besides those hedgerow of buckthorn. This is what you'll also see. Again, sunlight, air moving through, flowers blooming that are not buckthorn. So the reason we have such beautiful places here in Lake Zurich is you can see on the left the before settlement mapping, and then today, as we know, the beautiful city of Chicago, and then we're up in here. We have it color coded, and we are pink, but we also have places like this. Large old oaks, dappled sunlight, fresh air, flowering plants, a lot of diversity, different kinds of life. So this is probably what the settlers first saw when they came here. Also in Lake Zurich, we are kind of lucky that we do get those seasons. I know we were just kind of laughing before we started tonight that we had summer real fast, which does tend to happen. Spring seems to be the shortest month, but those seasons are what give us kind of the fun part in these natural areas. It's always changing. And then we have so many different things that visit through here during migration. I don't know if anybody else notices, but I do, and a lot of my people in the Ancient Oaks Foundation, but we have loons on Lake Zurich in the springtime that travel through here, and they stop on their migration up north to get food and to have rest. So, and then in the fall, our lovely colors, we are so lucky. And then winter does have its moments. But right now in the springtime, it's really a race for sunlight. And that sunlight is so important because that's how plants make their food. And once this canopy fills in, the plants on the forest floor can't get that sunlight they need for photosynthesis. You know, plants are pretty amazing. They get to make their own food. So here's one of the first spring racers, I call them. This is the plant bloodroot. Just a happy little guy, isn't it? Wonderful, bright flowers. It's so great to see it in the spring. See how they come up with the leaves wrapped around the stem? That's the first thing you see coming out of this pile of leaves in the springtime. And how they get the energy to bust through that when it's 45 degrees out still is amazing to me. It did get its name. If you were to cut the root, there is a, I don't want to call it sap because it's not really sap, but there is a liquid that comes out, and it has a high latex quality. Native Americans would use it for painting gourds, face paint, dye, especially. It was real important in their dyes. But when it first comes up, all you see is this leaf and the flowers stuck down inside. And as the days get warmer, the leaf will shoot up and open up like we saw in the last slide. Here he is coming up. See, so he protects the most important part here, because if he wants to make blood roots for next year, he has to protect that flower. So the leaf will be all the way wrapped up. Red Trillium, often called sometimes prairie trillium. We have quite a bit of it in the 2 sites that we are in the midst of very active restoration. Oak Ridge, Marsh Nature Park, and Cushman Park. And with this dappled leaf and these great petals, I just love them. Now, Trillium, of course, if you go back in the Latin, it comes down to a lot of 3s. So 3 petals, 3 leaves. They do tend to be in colonies. I have to look at my notes here because I'm gonna forget everything. Oh, there's a great nickname, Wake Robin. And I traced back, I read about the nickname. And so when you see this coming up and everything, you're supposed to be hearing the robins sing. So it's a great heralding of spring. Also too, in the one, I have a really old wildflower book, and it said that Native Americans used it for medicine a lot of times. And it was boiled into a tea. So I have never tried it. So we do have white trillium here in Lake Zurich. It's really rare where we are. If you do want to go somewhere and see it, it's grandifolium. So it's big. I mean, it'll get, a foot high. One of the great places to see it, I mean, and by the hundreds, would be Ryerson Woods, which is off of Riverwoods Road, south of 22, which is a great place to visit anyway. Here in Lake Zurich, this is on private property, which is an old growth forest that has never been plowed, and there is a little creek that runs through there. So it does like that really rich, wet soil. Trout Lily. Another, to me, that just means spring too, but both our sites have them. All the flowers I'm showing you today, except for that white trillium, we have on sites that Ancient Oaks is active in restoration. So, but Trout Lily, I love the way the petals turn up, to me is so fascinating, but it gets its name from this leaf, which is elliptical. But you can see how it's kind of mottled colors, the green with the mottled, it looks purple in real life. And if anybody ever goes fishing, trouts especially, they do have that mottled side. And I believe that's how it got its name. But also when it comes up is when the trout start biting, I read too. So there's a lot of folklore associated with wildflowers. Oh, this is a fun little fact. So they often have these large colonies, but when you see 1 leaf, that is an immature plant. When you see 2 leaves, so it'll be more like this. Can you guys see me? I don't even know. But 2 leaves, you will get a flower. So that is a mature plant. And it only blooms for 2 weeks. So spring is very short. It loves the dappled sunlight, and it takes like 7 years before it blooms. So they don't mature quickly. Okay. All right. I'm just going to keep going here. Another thing that a lot of scientists note is when you find a lot of these wildflowers, especially in large colonies, there's a good chance that that ground was never plowed. So it could have been grazed, it could have been dairy. Cushman Park was part of being a dairy farm, and they also grew corn back. I saw aerials from the 40s and 50s. So they are pollinated by bees, which makes it really convenient when your petals go up like this and you're just hanging out there. So let's go next. Spring Beauty. Now this is this little petite flower, but this thing is so hardy. I mean, it comes up before the last frost, can even handle a couple frosts. And what it does to protect that flower, look at how beautiful those pink little stamens and pollen is. it will close up. So opens and closes with the sunlight. So just to give you an idea, this leaf, and they're 3 to 4 inches long. And this plant has enough energy stored over the winter to actually bust through that leaf litter in that oak woodland and make this beautiful, gorgeous flowers. I mean, to me, that is just amazing. Now, this will stop blooming within 2 weeks once it starts, and it's one of the early ones. And then it will, the leaves will keep photosynthesizing probably into June. And then you won't see it again on the forest floor. You won't see it again till next mid-March, end of March, early April. So all that, it has to work like crazy to get that food stored for next spring. Excuse the garlic mustard leaves peeking through there, but this is the leaves of the spring beauties. Garlic mustard is the foe here in these woodlands. When garlic mustard takes over, you're going to lose your wildflowers. We are very active in pulling garlic mustard, and it's some years it's really a backbreaking job. But once your restoration plan is in place and you've come to a certain point, it becomes a much faster job than in the beginning. It's crazy. So I love this plant. It cracks me up. What a great name, Dutchman's breeches. So I just get a visual, a Dutch guy hanging upside down, or his laundry on a line, or all sorts of stuff, but a beautiful flower. And actually the flower is upside down. So your pollinators have to come in right in through here. So it's a tight squeeze, but when you make it a tight squeeze, they end up with a lot of pollen on themselves. So by being this shape too, the bees will actually have to go up inside, do a little turnaround. So by the time they come out, they're full of your pollen. So it's a good strategy for, I believe they have 6 different long-tongued bees, flies, and butterflies. So butterflies and skippers have that long proboscis that, they can unroll and roll. So that can reach far in there without having to go all the way in. But the long-tongued bees too, they need that to get in there. So this one is really pretty. And it's so different. It's cut leaf toothwort. You can see this beautiful leaf shape. Just these big lobes. And then this single stalk that holds just this beautiful arrangement of these white tubular flowers. And then they do form this carpet. And the flowers will open and close with sunlight and temperature. So they do protect themselves that way, because they know if it's cold, there's no insects going to be around. So they reproduce by seeds and also in their colonies. So you can get clones as well as the seeds. They will show up where it's never plowed. They can survive some disturbance and grazing. So they are grazed by deer mainly. And so when you have an overpopulation of deer, you will lose your toothwort. Now, the one thing too, though, is since it is reproduced by seeds, the seeds can stay in the soil for a long period of time. So if you do go to a natural area and you do have to take out the buckthorn, like in the pictures you saw, the seeds will still be in the seed bank or the soil. And that is a blessing, because then they pop up like this once you get the buckthorn out. Another one of my favorites, even since I was a kid, is the mayapple. And you can see as it first comes out of the ground, it's all twisted and wrapped around. And it just shoots right through. And sometimes you see them and they're gone right through a leaf. They've just gone up so fast that they actually broke through a big old oak leaf. Now, to me, I mean, that just shows the power of growth. But as they come up, you can see in here too, all this leaf debris they come through. They start to open up as the days get longer and get warmer. And here on this picture on the right, you can see all the different stages. And they get bigger and bigger. Now, if your plant only has one stalk, it's an immature plant. So it is less than 7 years old. If it has a fork, like this guy, it will get this wonderful flower. Now, again, this is a flower that hangs upside down. So hanging upside down can be an advantage too, because you're making the bees work for it. Now, bees come to flowers for two things. They come for the pollen, which they feed to their larvae, and then they come for the nectar. Not all of these plants have nectar, but they all have pollen. So mayaples, when you see them, you will know that you are in an old growth woodland. The other thing too is they will bounce back after restoration, and they do have large colonies. One of the things that you can notice too, if you are in a place that has gone through restoration, or you're lucky enough to find a place that hasn't had a huge buckthorn disturbance, is that they seem to grow in round colonies. And the story I always heard was that they grow around the oaks. And when the oak gets old and die, they'll go right over the old stump. So it's really kind of cool when you see them, you know oaks have been there for a long time. The berries are, no mammals will graze on this. It's not very tasty. They say if you eat in just a large quantity, you can't get sick. So you guys don't eat it, but the flower turns into a berry. The berry is actually pretty nutritious. And a whole bunch of studies just found out like 5 years ago that it's one of the main things that box turtles feed on in midsummer. We don't have box turtles here, but I still found that fascinating. And then other small mammals too. So like most berries, it does have a lot of vitamins, vitamin C especially. The seeds are spread. Now this is even better. The seeds are spread by poop. Yep. You know, most of us think wind or bees or anything like that. But the mayapple has solved that by making its berries pretty tasty. And then an animal goes about 20 minutes later, and that will be a little bit farther from the plant. The other interesting thing about mayaples is there's no other plant like it until you go to Asia. So it is very unique with this large leaf umbrella-like structure on top that shields the ground beneath as well as its flower. So not only does it protect the flower, but it's also protecting the forest floor. You know, the rain will still get through and everything will still get through, but it's going to be slowed down a bit. So protecting that soil too. So I just love mayaples. They're so cool. And you will see those at both sites too. Well, this is the one that's so different, so very different. Most people think of wildflowers as all perky and bright, and, you know, they're going to be in a painting. This guy should be in a lot of paintings. This is Bellewort. This one is large flowered yellow. It is actually in the lily family. One thing you can notice too, and you can see it here in a couple of places, but the leaves wrap around the stems. So they protect the stem too, as well as have that ability to kind of roll. So if you find Bellewort, it's very sensitive. And they call it, in one book, they actually call it shy. So it doesn't like grazing. It will bounce back from a seed bank, you know, if you've been overgrazed and you can get the cows out of there, or, you know, if your deer population goes high for a couple of years and then back down low, it will bounce back. But garlic, it's very sensitive to garlic mustard. And we've especially seen that over at Oak Ridge Marsh, that the Bellewort really bounced back the more garlic mustard we got rid of. One of the things I just love is these wonderful petals of the flower. This yellow is so gorgeous. and they're long and droopy. Again, make the pollinators work. But this is where it gets a little fun. The pollinators for bellworts are ants. Yep, ants. And there's 4 species that will pollinate the bellwort around here. And the reason they help, they don't pollinate, I'm sorry. The reason they help spread this plant is they spread the seeds. The reason they spread the seeds is bellwort makes its seed covered in this nice, juicy, sticky, yummy coating. And I can't even pronounce the word because I'm terrible at these kind of things, but it's called an allonomase, small food bodies stuck around the seed. And actually, if you ever see them, it actually looks like it's just gooey and sticky. And so this is sweet. The ants love it. They grab it. They run it back to the anthill, and they take it down deep under, and they share it with all their friends. They eat the outside and leave the seed. And where they leave it, basically, is where the next plant grows. So to me, I don't know, I think that's pretty amazing to set up that whole system to survive like that. One thing you'll notice too, not only do these leaves roll a bit, but one side is lighter. The underside is very light, almost white, and the top side will be green. And it will roll to protect itself from too much sun or anything like that too. But it also catches dew. And if you droop down, water runs downhill. So basically there's almost self-watering too. You can tell I get excited. I just love this stuff. So this is the plant that I noticed at Oak Ridge Marsh 20 years ago that made me go, wow, where am I? This is called wild hyacinth. It's basically, it's in the lily family, but it's related to an orchid too. And I mean, we have orchids in northeastern Illinois. You don't have to go to the tropics or the rainforest. We have them here. So these fascinating little plants, when I looked it up 20 years ago, there were about 15 of them on site. Now we have over 200. So again, what good restoration and good management practices, volunteer effort can actually do. So the seeds were probably there. If we waited too much longer, who knows if they would have bounced back, because they're kind of on a trail edge and they get just the right amount of sunlight there. And now that the buckthorn's gone, that helped a lot too. So the cool things about wild hyacinth, there was one quote I found years and years ago. It was from a pre-settlement journal. And in it, they said it bloomed so much, there were so many of them, that it made meadows appear like a lake of clear water. That must have been so cool to see. The bulbs are used for food by Native Americans. And one of the great things you find out about this plant too is that Lewis and Clark actually wrote about it in their journals. And they came to a part, the other side, they were over in Idaho. And the Native Americans came across them and they were starving, they were running out of food. The hunting wasn't that good. So the Native Americans made them fried hyacinth bulbs. And they were delicious, but if your system isn't used to it and you eat too much of it, apparently it has other effects that slow down your travels for a day or so. So they cooked it in a pit lined with rocks, and it was a long cooking process. So when you find wild hyacinths, you have found a woodland remnant that has not been plowed. So they are special plants. They are ant and bee pollinated. So he's going to carry away the seeds later on. right now he's just gathering as much sticky stuff because they do have nectar and pollen as he can. They're just special little plants, and they can't be more than, the great big ones are 8 inches high. So they're very delicate, but so sturdy to survive all that we've, and human habitat has impacted them. This is another fun one that came from restoration on both sites again that we did not plant. So we have seeded there and we have planted on both sites. We just put in, gosh, I don't know if Judy's on here. She's our president, Ancient Oaks, but Judy and a couple of volunteers put in 400 plants last Saturday at Cushman Park. Not 200, 400, which is so amazing. But this is on both sites again, like I said, it is not one of the ones we planted. It's called Shooting Star, and they have a basil rosette that comes up first, and you can see it over here on the left. And then this single stalk comes shooting up, and from it, like fireworks, poof, it just explodes. And the star heads for the earth and the petals go up. So you can see just this beautiful flower. And they're more sturdy than you think too. They, once you give them the things they need, a little bit of sunlight, some fresh air, some moist, loamy soil, they will respond really well. They've responded wonderful over at Oak Ridge Marsh, and then at Cushman, slow but sure. But Cushman's a work in progress. I hope you all get a chance to visit both sites. I think you'll find some really special things. Both sites have had a lot of traffic this past year, as we're all trying to get outside and keep ourselves healthy, and nature will do so many comforting things. And it's great because then you can, see other people too. So the other interesting thing about shooting stars is you might find them on your site all the way into July. Not the star part, but the this basil leaf structure, they call it, it'll look more like a rosette flat on the ground, you will find still into July. Most of the flowers die back by June. So this one's hanging on, and you can see with that broad leaf that he's just trying to make as much food as possible before he basically goes underground till next, for 6 months. So they are pollinated by bees too, but only the long-tongued bees, the mason bees, bumblebees, things like that, not honeybees. So honeybees don't seem to be able to, they don't like it, number one, because it doesn't have nectar. That's right. Shooting star does not have nectar. They are wind dispersed, which is kind of rare for some of these woodland wildflowers. Most of them are like the ants, the pollinators, they'll use rhizomes, things like this. But this is one of the few that is wind dispersed. So one of my favorites. Oh, and these pictures are a little fuzzy. So on the left, I'm sorry, that one's fuzzy, but that is the Columbine plant. I wanted you to kind of see the structure of the plant, because it starts out at that rosette, basil rosette, also growing in, and then it starts to get real leggy. And at the end of each of these stems are these beautiful, almost lantern-like flowers. And the leaves are very delicate and thin, and the stems are very thin too. But yet they make these beautiful, strong stems supporting amazing flowers. Now, Columbine is in the buttercup family, which I always find surprising because it doesn't look anything like a buttercup. But I saw my first hummingbird last Thursday, April 29th, in our backyard, which to me seemed a little early. In my head, I'm always saying Mother's Day. So from other people I've talked to at different agencies here in the Chicagoland area, and also what we've seen at our sites that Ancient Oaks takes care of, is we're seeing everything about 2 weeks ahead. So Mr. Hummingbird has been here since last Thursday. My columbines in my yard started opening on Friday. So he was at the feeder almost all afternoon Thursday, back and forth, back and forth. And sure enough, on Friday, my columbines started popping, and they are popping like crazy right now. So he has been very busy. The leaves turn a pretty yellow in the fall, so they will hang on in the yard if you plant them near your house. A lot of these plants you can plant in gardens, and they do pretty well. This one, the columbine, does really well, I think. I've had really good luck with it. You do want that dappled sunlight though, and it does spread by seed, and they are they're little bitty seeds. So you can, I mean, if you're trying to collect them. So pollinated by hummingbirds, bees, bumblebees, and hawk moths. So they are out at night, right? So this flower stays open. So hawk moths are the larger moths. And really, moths don't get enough credit for the pollinations that they do and the special roles that they have. I have a lot of violets, and because I don't mow very much, but violets are pollinated by moths too. And you would think with that beautiful yellow flower, you wouldn't, I mean, beautiful purple flower, that you wouldn't need to be so outstanding. But the activity at night, I've seen it on ultraviolet camera. It's amazing. So let's go next. Oh yeah. This is the one people write stories about. This is Jack in the Pulpit. So this is some good stories here. So this is what is a hooded flower, or a spadix bloom. So this guy right here in the middle, the Jack, is the flower. What's covering him is kind of the directional to get everybody to go down into the pulpit. So the bees, even some butterflies, but mainly those long-tongued bees. We do have some flies, and we do have ants also that will pollinate. The ants seem to have a problem getting out. Oh, but that's okay, because the male Jack in the Pulpits have a hole at the bottom of the flower. So if the ant gets in there and can't get out because it's slippery, he can still get out through the bottom, through the hole. So apparently that's how you tell male and female flowers of Jack in the Pulpit. Now it can change sexes each year, and that change is based on population and success in reproduction. So if, I don't know how they know this, there's not enough pollination going on, and you are a female flower, you will switch the next year to a male. So they often, you'll see a couple in a group. They don't get the large colonies like the toothwort or the mayapple or anything, but you will see groupings. And there are a couple at Oak Ridge Marsh that are probably over a foot tall. The bigger they are, the older they are. So that guy's been there a long time. This wonderful purple striping is amazing. And they say a lot of insects don't see color. Well, with that, you really don't have to. You know, just follow the stripes right here. This is where you want to be. So they're giving you all the signals you need. These berries will come probably in June, and they will really get nice and juicy by the end of June, July. And again, eaten by a lot of animals, great vitamin C, and they're extremely nutritious. So small mammals, and again, if we had box turtles, but we don't. But I just found that study very interesting. So one of my favorites, even from childhood, I remember this, are the bluebells. Now, they're often called Virginia bluebells, and the Virginia is actually part of their scientific name. They are pretty hardy, but they are, in some of the literature I've seen, they are actually calling them scarce lately. They're showing up more in people's gardens and things like that too, but to be in a wild state in an actually quality woodland, they aren't showing up like they used to. They do succumb to browse very easily. They are in the borage family, so they are kind of edible for mammals that are grazers. Bumblebee and other long-tubed bees, these beautiful flowers, and that shade is just outstanding. And multi-flowered. So if you're a bee, you know, look, you hit all those flowers at once. Excuse me. So there is a woodland not far from here where you will see bluebells like this. Ryerson Woods again, which was a very high quality woodland that has never been plowed. Just gorgeous. And also when you start seeing things like this too, you know, kind of the ecosystem you're dealing with too. You're dealing with a place that hasn't had that much soil destruction. So can you go in and plant other things? Sure. This is another fun one, I think, is Jacob's Ladder. And this one too has kind of got the old folklore stories about it. Just like bluebells, I remember these growing up in the woods near our house. That beautiful color flower again. I love the leaves. And you'll notice that the leaves are across from each other, like a ladder. Wonderful flowers. Beautiful shades. You notice the slope. That slope indicates where do I want the bee to go? Right there, right in the middle. Again, leaves across from each other, just climb that ladder right up. This is one of my favorites because sometimes, you know, it's 45 degrees, you're out in the woods, and, you know, the day's kind of that cloudy gray spring day, and you're like, is it ever going to get nice out? And then you come across just a little bit of a dip in the land, and bam, there they are, the Marshmallow Golds. I saw this one appear in a place that I never would have thought of. And that is in a little dip behind Sarah Adams School. So then I started doing a little more research, and, you know, sure enough, we have Buffalo Creek right there. And Buffalo Creek is a creek that's half above ground, half below ground, and mostly tiled and manicured to only go one way and stay in a ditch. Well, sometimes it doesn't want to, as we found out in Lake Zurich in the past couple of years. But that water is still moving underground. Well, that's all a marshmallow gold needs. He likes his toes wet. And so if he can be in that little dip, he's out of that cold northwest wind that we often get here. He can open up those beautiful big fat leaves and soak up all the sunshine. Great big fat petals. They say too that a lot of the pollinators it's more of a fluorescence that they see. So you can imagine that this is pretty shiny. So here are the flowers just getting ready to open up, early spring. So I went through this so much faster than I thought. These are the ones that I didn't put in the show because I was afraid I had too many. So let's see what's in the chat. And then we can, I can certainly go through some of these if you want to. And then I did want to also talk to folks too about resources. one of the questions, what's the name of the nature center I mentioned? Sandra, I'm not sure. I think it was nature centers I worked at were Heller Nature Center in Highland Park. The place to see the white trilliums and those beautiful beds of Virginia bluebells is Ryerson Conservation Area. It again is on Riverwoods Road, technically Deerfield, but it is Riverwoods. And that is south of 22. So just go east on 22, take a right on Riverwoods Road, and it'll come up on your right-hand side. Head for the Brushwood Center, which is their foundation's offices, which isn't open to the public, but the trails over there are where you want to see these flowers. Do any native turtles eat the berries of mayaples? Box turtles, they have found do. We don't have any land turtles right around here. I don't think the water turtles would eat it, but I could be surprised. I mean, I have found painted turtles in a woodland before. What I found surprising when they mentioned the box turtles was that it was, to get those berries, they would be in the woods in July. So I just thought that was so cool. So, and Blanding's turtles do come upland to lay eggs. So do painted turtles and snapping turtles. So they could be in the woodlands more than I know. What parks or natural areas do you have in Lake Zurich to see these native plants? Well, of course, I'm going to tell you to go to two of my favorite places. One is Oak Ridge Marsh Nature Park, 500 Lions Drive. So you go past the Village Hall, past the American Legion, and don't blink because you could miss the parking lot. But the site itself is over 20 acres and it goes all the way back into Echo Lake. And once you get away from the road a little bit, you're going to feel like you're in a much farther away place. It's beautiful. Right now, it is blooming heaven. We do have a workday coming up on Wednesday, 12 to 2, to check our website. But the woman who's leading that is really great with wildflowers too. So pull a little garlic mustard, listen to Alicia. You could find out a whole bunch of stuff. So some of the ones that I missed that are blooming up there right now, the toothwort is blooming. There's a couple little phlox coming up too. The shooting stars are starting up. You can see that basil rosette, the trout lilies for sure. The hyacinths probably, you probably have a week, maybe, but you're going to start seeing those skinny leaves. And as soon as you'll see it, you know. And I'll give you a hint, it's where the trail forks. The other spot where I would go to see some wildflowers is Cushman Park. And that's 626 North Old Rand Road. And that's another one, don't blink, you'll miss it. So before you hit Bobbers, you need to hit Cushman. It's about 3 driveways south. And you'll see our nature playscape we started too. You got to go back in the woods to see the trout lilies and the mayaples. And remember, it's a work in progress. So the cool thing about these places and doing restoration and being a work in progress is that you actually see fruits of your labor. You see the diversity and the ecosystem bounce back from the love that you give it. And the hard work. Believe me, cutting buckthorn, if you want to stay in shape, that's the way to do it. But, and pulling garlic mustard helps too. So how am I doing on time, Valerie?
You're doing pretty good, Mary. It's about
great.
7:52. So we got like a couple more minutes
Great.
if we have any more questions.
Okay, and I can go back and talk about lots of things. Let me go. I have one more slide after this, I believe. Yes, and Bainberry, we have ramp. You will see too. Now these little guides are from the Field Museum. The Field Museum, if you need to identify anything, go to the Field Museum. Now you do have to fish around there a lot to find their guides to everything. They got mussels, they got birds, they got rocks, they got soil, they got wildflowers, they got prairies, they got woodlands. They put a whole new setup for dragonflies up last year. done by a woman just in McHenry County who's pretty amazing. So, and we do have a dragonfly program in August set up for families. Again, at Manor Park, in the pond across from Walgreens, in an hour, we found over 6 different kinds of dragonfly larvae. And that's in a detention pond in Lake Zurich. So this is what I mean, that, you know, we tend to think of our urban ecosystems as kind of, you know, like Route 12, but there's a lot more here. And we do need to, you know, to work to share it. So wood anemone, there's a few out there right now. Columbine's just starting to pop, and that is at Oak Ridge. Oh, jacks, look for the jacks. You'll find them on the north end of the site. Wild hyacinths, I hope you all get to see, because I have to admit I'm a little biased there. So I'm trying to think what else someone might be interested in. If you are a little bit of a traveler, there's some really wonderful sites within an hour that are different. In McHenry County, there's a place called Coral Woods, and head for the nature trail. I will tell you, Hollywood couldn't do it any better. It's one of the most beautiful spots. And it's because it's stayed a footpath, and it is a little rugged. You will get a little dirty, but it's totally worth the trip. If you have any questions, guys, feel free, or if there's programs in the future you'd like, we'd love to hear from you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mary, or about any of the plants that she talked about tonight, or even just ancient oaks, if you have any questions about the organization?
Oh, the last place is called Coral Woods. And it's going to take a little bit of digging to get to it. There's a map on McHenry County Conservation District's website. The address is 7400 Somerset Drive in Marengo. Again, it's a tough little path, but it's totally worth it. And of course, the chain of lakes is cool. Bolo Bog, always. That's what I mean. We're so lucky. We're surrounded by all these cool things.
We do. We have a lot of great places.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, it's very easy to kind of slip into the, you know, Route 12 and back and forth to Jewel kind of thing. So you do have to take time out for yourself and spend time in nature. And that's kind of why we work on the places that we work on, because we like going there too. So.
Well, thank you, Mary.
Thank
I think
you.
that was it as far as
there's something else here, I think.
there is one more. Is it worth it, or is it possible to put these natural plants on my property?
Yes, please do it. I can't tell you how exciting my yard has been. My yard saved me last summer and spring. And I've been putting native plants in for a long time. Believe me, I am far from perfect. I just retired in last year, so my timing couldn't have been better, but it was the things that appear. Hummingbirds. I have more kinds of bees than I know. And I've had a couple bumblebees where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's got to be that rare one. It wasn't, but I got excited. The butterflies are amazing, swallowtails, monarchs, all sorts of other ones. So seeing the life that can come up from one yard that isn't treated chemically, and that all I have to do is put in cool plants.
There was another question: where to purchase? Where can they be
where
purchased?
To purchase plants?
Yeah.
There, a couple of the sales are already over. There's 2 places I will, 3. One would be the Land Conservancy out of McHenry County just put more plants up. So go to their website, buy quick. They have great product. It is a little bit of a drive. It's out towards Woodstock. The site it's on too, go for a walk because it's pretty nice. And then they also have trees and shrubs for sale too. Lake County is, I think theirs might end this weekend, Mother's Day weekend. So you can go to that one too. And they're actually mailing them to you. So you don't have to go and pick them up. It just gets mailed right to your house. That's service. The other place is Rob Boyce over here on Old McHenry, 22 and Old McHenry. Go north on Old McHenry, and he's on the left-hand side. Rob Boyce Natural Environments, and he has a lot of native plants in there too, and they're from local stock too. And he's got some vegetables too. He grows everything by hand. So that's a good park. Glacial Park is way cool. I had my office there for 11 years. Amazing.
Someone mentioned, yeah, Prairie Moon Nursery.
Yes, Prairie Moon Nursery is nice too.
Nice too. Okay.
I love Prairie Moon. And they have, I love their catalog. You can learn so much just from their catalog. Someone was talking about nettles.
Yeah.
I don't think I can pull up a picture. I would just Google them, and you're mostly going to find nettles where you find like wet, degraded streams on the edges of some of the marshes. Nettles are horrible. They get under your skin and they stay there way too long. There's a couple of old wives tricks you can do with it. You know, you can rub some alcohol on it. The best thing to do is not rub though. It's just, you know, slightly go like this and hopefully it'll come unhooked. Take a hot shower so that your pores open up and release the stingers. And we have two kinds here, I believe. I've run into some that were like taller than me.
Wow.
Yeah, when you're cutting through some of the marshes where you're probably not supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So
thank you, Mary. It was great having you back. Like I said, look for another presentation in July. I think the date you're going to be back with this is the 22nd. It's a Thursday night. So on Fireflies. And I think we have some things planned for the fall as well. So,
yes,
so anyway, check out their website, and all the best to everyone. Thank you, Mary, for joining us again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Valerie. And I love your staff.
Thank you. If anyone wants to replay this program, we did record it. It'll be on the library's YouTube channel. So if you missed some information or want to check a slide again, we'll have it up this week on our YouTube channel. One thing I want to announce real quick, the library is now open our pre-COVID hours. I was just talking to Mary about that tonight. So we are back to our normal hours, 9 to 9, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 6 Friday, 9 to 5 Saturday, and noon to 5 on Sunday. So that was real exciting news for us to kind of get back to this point after a real tough year. So we're still encouraging our grab and go services. So again, we want folks to come in and be able to look around and get their books and then head off. So our meeting rooms aren't open just yet, and study rooms and things like that. So, but we're making progress. So that's, that's a good thing, right?
Yes.
Anyway, all right. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight, and have a great evening. Thank you, Mary. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.